Hey everyone, it's Soul, and we're back with some more Horrific Vision commentary. This time, I'm going to come to you a bit humbled, because I'm realizing a little bit too late that most players aren't plowing through mask runs. In fact, maybe you're struggling just to meet the minimum quest requirements to upgrade your fancy little cloak. So I'm going to focus on just that for a while, making sure that you can complete the bare minimum that these legendary quests ask of you by yourself. So to demonstrate this, I won't be using the Protection Paladin that I have a decade of experience with, but a Discipline Priest, a class and a spec that up until now I didn't have a clue how to play. This priest's gear comes from, I guess, casual content, so world quests, emissaries, assaults, and horrific visions that I've already run. Even then, he's got an item level of 436, mostly thanks to the cloak, and a neck level of 72, which was almost disturbingly easy to level through just emissaries and such. His main essence is a rank 3 crucible, and the other slots are taken up by essences of that aren't really all that important. Also shown here are the talents that I'm using. He also happens to be using the Echoing Void Corruption trait, which deals AoE damage based on max health. I'm going to run 3 chest runs of both Orgrimmar and Stormwind with commentary, describing my approach, mobs that I'm focusing on, and other useful tips. It's going to sound a little weird because I recorded the Orgrimmar one and thought that it was a complete video. Well, you'll hear it. Anyway, throughout the run, you're going to see how I incorporate Echoing Void, a trait that wasn't just nerfed recently, but it's not so suited for a healer spec. But before I begin, I want to make this very clear. Horrific Visions are not a race against others, if you don't want it to be. It's a challenge for you and those who you happen to be running with. I can say with confidence that you don't need to farm every daily or kill every rare in order to progress at a reasonable pace. You don't need to farm essences or pug 15s to get the gear that you need. This is a closed system, and you can progress through it just fine on your own. But with all that said, let's begin. So I'm going to start off with Stormwind, and like I said earlier, the Orgrimmar video is going to sound a little funny because I made it sound like a standalone video, but I'm going to start with the Stormwind, which is what I did later. Well, I guess all that sounds funny, but notice I only have like a basic food buff, which is Ghastly Goulash. I should have mentioned that earlier. I'm not using invisibility pots or anything else. So I kicked off here by going for the Footman by using my Schism, which increases damage taken by the enemy, and I just focus on important mobs. So in this case, I go for the Void Speaker because of the fear that it casts, and otherwise I just throw dots on these smaller mobs. And you can see I'm just kind of tearing through them. This is largely due in part to the nerfs that were done to Horrific Visions if you happen to be playing as a healer spec. And also keep in mind that if you're playing as a healer and you're with at least 1 DPS, the multiplier for how much HP and damage that the mobs deal, it's not increased by as much as it was before. That was nerfed. So here I'm dealing with these Riftwalkers, and I was able to tear through one of them pretty quick, because I've done this run a couple of times now. Basically, just throwing down the dots will definitely help, but you still want to be able to dodge their AoE attacks, and if possible, you can use things like your Psychic Scream or your Shining Force to knock back and interrupt at least the attacks of the Riftwalkers and some others. Here I'm taking some extra mobs here because I'm going to be going back to this area later. That way I can strategically throw down my Sanity Orb. I'll also notice that when it comes to the Footmen, instead of trying to power through and DPS through the repel, which reflects damage back to me, I either try to interrupt the repel through Shining Force or Fear, or I just wait, because otherwise that damage might be too much for me to take. So now I'm going on to the Dwarven district. First off, going for the priest over here, but not before dotting up both guys. In this case, the piercing shot that these ranged adds do, it can get pretty bad if you just kind of stand still like a turret and let yourself get hit by multiple shots, especially simultaneously. That can be a big problem for you. I have no idea why I dotted those up. It's not like I have any special procs or anything like that going on. But I'm walking through, making sure to dot up these gnomes on the way over to the door. And from there, you can see I'm letting Echoing Void do some of the work for me. The way that this will work, and I'll describe this again in the Orgrimmar run, the more that I cast, or the more that I use abilities that are on the global cooldown, that's what builds stacks of Echoing Void. So reapplying dots is actually pretty useful here, instead of just relying on my penance to spread my Purge the Wicked, my dot. So I believe here is where I take a bit of a risk by pulling this big guy over here, as well as the small adds that come with it. You can see I'm getting kind of stunned and dazed a little bit here, and this can cause like a couple of problems. Obviously, you can take a look here and see that there's a lot of mobs on me. I don't have a lot of dots rolling either, which is bad. I should be doing a better job with this here. And also notice that I'm dealing with Dark Delusions. This is the madness effect over here in this corrupted area. But I'm able to kind of go through it. I'm taking a little bit of risk by getting really close to the Dark Delusion. But I'm putting most of my focus now on the Elite here. And keep in mind, I do not have Elite Extermination at the moment. You saw there I got dazed for a little bit, and that's what caused me to take a little bit of extra sanity damage, which brings me now down to a little under 1/3 of my sanity bar left. But not a worry, because we're only doing 2 extra objectives and going for Illyria. But with this half of the room clear, I'm free to take care of bombs without too much trouble. As usual, with my bad habits, I'm ignoring potions altogether. They are very useful, but I don't know, I guess in my head, like the time that it takes to go to a vial and open them up, it just doesn't feel worth it, although that's not very good thinking. So I decide here to throw down an orb between these 2 packs here, and I decide to dot them all up here on these sides, taking both of these packs as I'm getting my sanity back, as well as health. Very important to note that these orbs also do restore your health. So notice that those 2 heart piercers over there, they're just kind of free firing. And this is what I was talking about before, where if you stay still, or if you otherwise ignore these mobs and let them get their big arrow cast out at you, it can cause big problems. Unfortunately though, what I also did here is ignore all the adds that are beating me down. Ghastly Goulash did a really good job of helping to keep me up, and also since I'm a healer, it's, you know, I can heal myself up fairly quickly. But I was a little bit reckless here. This is something that I probably shouldn't have done. I think I was relying on Echoing Void a little bit too much. So I think in the future, I'm going to try to take better care of myself on that. At any rate, though, I still cleared the pack. There's just one more small pack to go that's blocking a couple of bombs. I totally missed that Dark Delusion that spawned in the path of where I was going to. That's always kind of a pain. But otherwise, this is the last pack in the entire area. And this is why I usually choose the Dwarven District first. It's a really good opener. You can clear it fairly quickly, depending on your class and spec. Like as a tank, I can just pull the whole thing and clear it. In this case, you can do it in 2.5 pulls. And this is as a healer, so that's not so bad. But now with this clear, I can try to avoid this guy and click it. Cool. And go for the area boss. So very important with as a priest is to use Schism or use single target nukes whenever possible for these kinds of bigger mobs. And the order of operation is basically take care of the most dangerous mob by focusing it down and dot up everything else. Because most everything else, most of the packs here, they're designed in such a way that 1, maybe 2 mobs matter. The rest of them, not so much. You can, for the most part, ignore them or save them for later, cleave them down, you know, whatever works for you. But we finished up here. Might as well get that extra chest. I really want to. I believe after this run, I think I am able to get Elite Extermination after this, but not in this run. And off we go for some reason, I don't quite know why I'm just why I dismount there. I can just run right through mounted without feeling any penalties, or you won't get combat locked. So this time around, going through the trade district here, I opt to go right, which is totally new. I don't do this on my tank, and I may do this in the future because I like this route. I'm able to skip at least one pack, because otherwise I clear the entire area, or I've been clearing the entire area up until now. So this is a different strategy that I'm trying, which is not perfect. I'm still trying to perfect how to do this because I'm pulling quite a few mobs. My sanity is getting a little bit low, so I need to kind of figure out what's going to be the best timing for me. Like, should I clear more mobs and then pop an orb, or do I pop an orb first, clear more mobs? You know, it depends on how well or how fast you're killing things. How much time are you taking, and are you maximizing that time? But I decided to give this one a try, and in most ways it works out. I'll continue commenting on this. So I go ahead and get this pack 2. It's important to get all of these packs because later on you're going to be backtracking and opening up all the cages in this area. The exception is a single pack here that you don't necessarily need to run through. So you can see here that I'm starting to run pretty darn low on sanity. Dark Delusion's coming, so I gotta make sure I stay out of the way of that. And I want to throw down an orb, I just need to find out where. And I figure that my best place is just around this corner, trying to avoid that pack over there with the tentacle. And so I pop the orb here, and I opt to skip this pack and go straight for this guy here. Now, this Inquisitor, this guy's dangerous as a healer because there is, as far as I know, no recourse for me as a healer to deal with his agonizing torment. I can't fear him. I can't knock him back. I'm not entirely sure if I can line of sight. And the debuff that I'm afflicted by when he casts this is a curse. So as a priest, I can't do anything about it. If I was like a mage, and I believe a druid, if I recall off the top of my head, I believe they can undo curses. In this case, I just need to blow it up as soon as possible. The other, and of course, the other thing that I can do is exactly what I did, is to use my sanity restoration orb right when I'm fighting it. So that way the penalty of being hit by his attacks isn't so bad. So those are the kinds of things that you need to think about when running these and otherwise trying to replan your path, because that's going to be a really critical thing in order to progress further into visions later on. But we're not there yet. We're just trying to take care of completing 3 objectives and, you know, maybe getting some gear or corrupted gear, and of course progressing your cloak. So here we go with the next elite with the Slave Master, and I just blow him up, pop cooldowns, and go nuts. Since this guy does his chains on HP thresholds, so like when he gets to a certain percentage level, he'll cast it. You can see here I'm doing some ridiculous damage on him. And in fact, I believe like a trinket proc or an Azerite trait proc is what finished him off. So I made that look really easy. Classes that can do damage over time will definitely have a good advantage here because during the chains you're silenced. But if you're able to get dots out or a good cast off beforehand that leaves a dot, then that'll be very helpful for you. Now that this is clear though, we're going to go around to where all these mobs are not, because we already cleared this area. We have about half of a sanity bar left and 1 orb remaining. So we're looking good because we're just about to complete the 2 areas. And this is where we're able to earn the quest items that we need. Because remember, we can only earn 2 quest items per run, which is a little unfortunate, but you could always plan around this. And in this kind of run, which takes a little over 10 or so minutes, it's not so bad. Farming is farming, right? So now that all 8 objectives are done, we just go back and click the portal in the middle of the square, and off we go back to the cathedral once again. Hi, what's his name? Thrallian, there you go. Hi, Thrallian. So I opt to go for this treasure chest over here, dot him up, let Echo and Void do some of the work. and then just use a couple casts to finish off the rest. No problem. I could have opted to take a few more seconds to find some more, maybe to find some more chests, but you know, not a big deal. We're just trying to get by. Just trying to get our runs in for the week. So here, the usual practice is to throw down a Sanity Orb once I'm ready to go. Here we go. And then get ready to go to town once my sanity bar fills up. So, as usual, at least concerning a Discipline Priest, open up with Schism. And then throw everything else that I've got. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't look like I have my Shadow Fiend available. I didn't spec for that. But as arranged, you notice that Darkening Sky, it went on me. If I opened up with my Shadow Fiend, Darkening Sky would probably target the pet. So classes like Warlocks and Hunters, Ilaria is a much easier fight. There's considerably fewer things to dodge in this case. Not so much if you're just a plain old caster, but we're gonna, well, work with what we've got anyway. Applying more dots, reapplying more dots, taking the short cooldown of Schism and taking advantage of that so we can throw down whatever extra damage that we can before she does her routine again and makes us have to hide behind a pillar. I got a little bit messy there, but not a worry. She goes down pretty darn quick. So, without a doubt, in my mind at least, Stormwind is the more difficult of the two visions. But even then, with just some gear that I get from casual content, I'm able to clear this without terribly much trouble. So I chose a priest because, well, none of my other characters who happen to be healers were really ready, except for my paladin, but, you know, obviously he is much too overgeared. So the talents that I chose, like I said, I chose to go for talents that let me nuke very important adds. So in this case, with the Shaman, I open up with my Schism, and then I pop whatever instant abilities that I have to quickly take them down. Of course, that's not enough. You saw the totem spawn there briefly, and that's always going to be a problem. As for the other adds, though, I just kind of, well, I just dot them up, really, and rely on Echoing Void damage to do some extra damage, but otherwise I sort of forget about them. By this, I can rely on Ghastly Goulash to just keep me up, and that's really it. Now, as for interrupts, the only thing that I have is Shining Force, and to be honest, I'm not very used to using the ability. Shining Force is something that I would cast on top of myself, and I would use that to knock back the enemy. I just seem to be doing a very bad job of doing it in this case. So this time I do opt to open up a treasure chest, because this isn't my first 3-chest run on my priest. This is just the first one that I happen to record. I'm also kind of going the extra mile, and I'm taking a look at which mysterious liquid happens to be the bad one. In this case, it is the black one, and you can go inside that building to find out which of the vials are bad. For the most part, I tend to not go for these because it takes time to just drink the vials, and I have to go out of my way to do it. So if you feel pressed for time, and you're not sure if even 100 sanity is worth it, then I wouldn't worry about it too much. So this pack I once again opened up with Schism, followed by nukes, and I tried to pace myself in such a way that I always have Schism available for those kinds of important mobs. The ones that either can inflict lots of damage on me, or ones that can crowd control me, and otherwise cause me to take extra sanity damage and whatnot. So for these mobs, I just dot them up right away, and otherwise leave them alone. I prepare myself for the elite over here. So of course I'm going to open up with the Schism, and then I'll pop. I'm not even remembering the names of abilities right now, but I'm just popping whatever instance that I have, strongly single target damage, and just try to whittle them down. Thankfully, with Purge the Wicked, I'm able to spread or respread dots on these smaller adds. But as you can see, mobs are falling pretty quickly, thanks to some nerfs that happened the other week that reduced the life of mobs if you happen to be playing as a healer. So being a disc priest, maybe this is a little bit advantageous, knowing that these guys have a little bit less life. Sometimes Schism is able to almost one-shot mobs, which is pretty amazing. So between that, dots, and other instant spells, it can be incredibly... a disc priest can feel pretty powerful in here. Given that my Titanic research isn't even very well optimized, I actually didn't spec for doing damage, or I didn't spec for solo play, I spec for group play, as I usually do. So I do still feel pretty effective here. Earlier I was going for the Tormentor mobs that cast their AoE, as opposed to this Voidwalker guy. But as you can see, so far I'm at a pretty good pace for someone at this level. With not having the elite extermination, not having a high cloak level, I'm still doing pretty reasonably well. You saw just there, I did 100k with my essence. Once again, it just emphasizes that at least as a healer, there's very few essences that I can work with, but Crucible is extremely useful and something that's very well worth using. The other ones, they just happen to be like they give me like a small bubble, a little bit of damage reduction, but it's not something that Ghastly Goulash would otherwise take care of for me. So here I got hit with this totem. My DPS was a little bit low, and so now it's just kind of disorienting me here. It can be a little bit troublesome, but I'm able to pull through. And now I'm at a point where I need to pop my first orb, and this is actually where my paladin was before, so I feel like I'm at a pretty good pace here. Looks like I messed up on my orb though. I wanted to pop it here, or just before here, but I think I was just a little bit too close. And as you can see, towards the bottom of the screen, that's where my sanity bar is for some strange reason. I'm kind of cutting it close. Spoiler alert, I make it. Woohoo! So not so bad. You can see I'm getting a little bit extra sanity back because of the way that I spec my character. So I'm a little bit behind on points actually. I actually could have Elite Extermination now if I didn't screw up on my Titanic research build. But here I open up as usual, open up with Schism, use my instance, dot him up. And I think I'm a little bit lucky here. I'm able to very quickly get to my orb and continue to apply damage. You can see that the elemental only has about 400k life, which is still kind of significant for an ad with different mechanics, but not something that is too difficult to handle as long as you're putting a lot of focus away from healing and towards doing damage, since obviously you're by yourself. This is where I would usually use an invisibility potion to skip through these mobs, but I just don't have one, which is okay. As long as I focus on the important mob, which was the shaman in that case, these other mobs here, I could just dot them up, let the damage spread, and let Echoing Void help me out. And that's something that's pretty important, is to take advantage of the corruption that I have. Since I just have Echoing Void, the way to build up stacks is to cast spells that are on the global cooldown. So by applying and reapplying dots, I'm able to build up stacks and otherwise get a chance for Echoing Void to start detonating on all of these mobs. Alright, so let's go to our second area. And as usual, I want to open up big because I hate the tentacle. It appears that it doesn't matter what your class is, you're never going to like the tentacle. Thankfully, the dots finished them off fairly quickly there. And these Mind Carvers, they do a Horrify, but otherwise it's not a big deal. And then, of course, there's the madness that we have to deal with, Animophobia. Just make sure that you jump, which I'm sure is tough for a caster, but at least for my Disc Priest, a lot of what I'm doing is instant. So there's a little bit less for me to worry about there. It's just a matter of making sure that I at least get one jump in before I do a big cast like Schism, and otherwise I would be relying on my Essence and my other instance to get me through. So I happen to pick up that blue liquid, which has kind of a kiss curse effect. In this case, I believe this one makes me move a little bit faster, but after the buff expires, then I think I'm crowd controlled for a few seconds, which isn't a big deal at this level. But at high level, I don't know, I'm a little bit iffy on whether or not I would rely on these vials, with the exception of the one that restores 100 sanity. So you saw a little bit earlier, I went straight for the Dominator, and he got nuked really quick. As you know, the Dominator does a very nasty stun. And as a healer, there's not much recourse that you have for interrupts, except for, in this case, Shining Force, or if you happen to be able to, if you can possibly line of sight the cast. So I got really lucky there, and I was able to take out that tentacle just in one shot, which really shows you how much they've reduced life in visions if you happen to be a healer. Otherwise, the Mind Carver is really not a huge deal. And from there, I proceed just as usual. Of course, that mob appeared over there, so I opt to dot him up really quick, and otherwise put my focus on the Dominator once again. Hit capital instants, which are readily available. The cooldowns for a Disc Priest, they come up pretty quick. So with those two more dangerous mobs down, you can see my sanity is a little bit less than a third now, but I'm still doing pretty good. I'm still pretty on schedule. Looks like the Mind Carver got a fear off, but not a huge deal. Goulash is able to protect me, and if I really need to, I could always bubble and heal myself. I happen to have an essence on that lets me do a lot of healing with my Shadow Mend, but I don't really take advantage of it here. But now all the mobs are clear. I'm about to pop my second orb. Yeah, I do have 2 orbs left. You can see that on the right-hand side of the screen. I was like, oh, where'd it go? So this one's a little bit tough because I don't have a whole lot of burst, and I want to be able to rely on burst when it comes to breaking this guy's shield. Unfortunately, I don't have that luxury, but I do have a full sanity bar. But I opt to just unleash. The problem that I think I have, at least so far, is dealing with Void Torrent. I'm not exactly fast, unlike my Paladin. I don't have a super horse speed up to rely on. I could use something like Body and Soul to speed me up. That might be something that I can consider in the future. Or Angelic Feather, I believe. That's something that I could also rely on. But in this case, I just kind of run like a doofus. But I'm still able to overcome it, thankfully. But those are other things that you would want to consider as a healer, or in this case as a Discipline Priest. Small little things to give you that little bit of an edge, because later on that lost sanity is going to mean a whole lot. Right now it looks like I just opted to explore a little bit. I have the luxury. And of course, getting to my next major trait, which is Elite Extermination. The faster that I can do that, the better. But at any rate, it's time to head back. I pretty much wrapped up everything that I want to do, and now it's time to take out Thrall. I have basically 2 bars of sanity to work with. So not to say that this is easy. A lot of how this is doable sums up to the experience that I've accumulated on my main. Knowledge of mobs, and of course the repetition and learning from that is it really goes a long way. So it makes Thrall not that big of a deal here. Of course I have to deal with some of the extra mechanics like hopelessness, as well as, of course, this right here, Surging Darkness. And as a caster, I can definitely feel that in some cases certain casters might suffer. Ones that have to rely on actual casted abilities and not instants. So I would recommend for anybody, whether you're a caster or healer, if you have the ability to keep using abilities on the move, take advantage of that as much as you can. But of course here, you just want to pop everything and pretty much unleash everything you've got. From here, from my instance to Shadow Fiend and everything. Whatever you got, just pop it. And that is it. So, not to say, like I said, not to say that this is easy or that this is simple, but it's definitely possible to do as a healer. You just need to have a certain kind of focus that's very much geared towards dealing damage as opposed to healing. But I'm pretty confident that anyone who puts it even like a minimum amount of work, and by minimum I'm saying you don't have to run Mythic 10s, you don't need to get carried through heroic or even normal raids. You can just do the normal content and work your way up through completing assaults and visions. You'll be able to get to where you want to go. So it looks like it looks like I did just get myself up to rank 9. And that's pretty much going to be it. So I hope that this was useful, and if it was, please like the video, and otherwise stay tuned for more guides to horrific visions and all things Warcraft. I'll see you next time. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.